Welcome to Unity of New Braunfels. I'm Reverend Gary Kanye. It's a delight to be part of this wonderful forum. We are the light, and this time of year, as we're approaching the longest night, day of the year, we're bringing the light. And it doesn't matter how small we are mighty. And this is a wonderful time. I open the church always to this team. Whenever you want facilities, we're available. This is, you each got one of the maps here. We're here in the sanctuary, in the center. When we do our breakout rooms, if we're going to do those today, in the foyer is the awareness committee. Right here in the sanctuary is the inclusion committee. And then if you go through this door, turn right, the hallway leads you right to a big women's and men's bathroom and the life room and the gratitude and prosperity room, which is those other two breakout rooms. So it's pretty straightforward. We have an all-y'all restroom that's on that side of the foyer and the men's room over here. Does anyone have any questions at all? Well, welcome. Let's carry on, and I believe our wonderful Mayor Rusty Brogman is next. So,
thank you, Pastor. We appreciate it. I'm gonna just stand right here. Can you hear me okay? Okay. I didn't know that was happening. I'm not sure I even want to take my mask off. I think I probably ought to keep my mask on. Is this okay to stand right here? Do I need to? Hold the microphone next to you. Right, yeah, I'm going to try to get all these things I've got in my hands. Well, thank you for being here. And I think that probably most all of us are wondering why it took us this long to be able to get together in person. Those of you that are watching, we wish you were here, and we hope you get to come and join us in person one of these days real soon, especially after the first of the year. We've transitioned in a very smooth way for the last 18 months from one meeting to another to another. We've made lots of progress, and I'm extremely proud to be part of this group. We've transitioned now into being able to meet in person. And so hopefully after the first of the year, everyone that's watching will feel comfortable with coming together with us and being able to continue to meet in person, face to face. The big transition is, in my mind, is the fact that the McKenna Foundation and Alice Jewell and her team have agreed to continue helping us make our steps progressing in a way that is going to be healthy, the best for the community, the best for those that we want to see and work with very closely, in addition to those that have been seen and working so closely all these months. And so that is our goal, and I appreciate that, Alice, very much. Dr. Lewis with us today, and thank you for fighting the traffic, especially the holiday traffic. We're glad you're here, and we look forward to discussing that. I think as I turn it over to Alice, we appreciate the use of the entire facility. It may benefit us most by staying together and having this discussion amongst all of us, and letting each person maybe make some comments. But at this point, this is extremely important to me. I hope it's important to you, because we have already found out from all the work that everyone has done up to this point that it's an extremely important topic to our community. And the topics are not just one, they are several. And there are many people doing lots and lots of work already in areas that we see as ways we can help. And so I look forward to being part of this team for a long time to come. And I hope that as we make some decisions, one of those decisions that I'm going to really pull for is that no matter who is sitting as the mayor of this community, we want them being part of this committee going forward. We want the mayor in 2046 still carrying these torches. I don't know why I chose that year, but I just figured, well, that's 25 years from now or something like that. And so that's what we want, and I hope that is something that we can all agree to, because it is important to me. This is not a one-time 3-year program and it's over and we celebrate, hand everybody a plaque and go home. That's not what this is. This is endless, and it will hopefully have an impact for my kids, my grandkids, and my grandkids' kids, and that's my hope and my prayer. And so without me rambling on anymore, I'm going to turn it over to Alice. And Alice, thanks again for helping us out. We appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome. And if it's important to the mayor, it's important to us. So happy to be here. Thank you, Reverend Gary, for opening up your doors to us. I think this is a great venue. I have no reason why we would necessarily change our meeting spot. But so this is an important convening. As the McKenna Foundation, we do a lot of convening. Some of you have been part of those other groups in the past, but we really have found, I would say, over the last couple of years, we've found a niche in bringing together stakeholders around issues and community needs that aren't, that are really important, but not talked about enough, sometimes ignored, not organized around a certain idea. But it all starts with bringing the like-minded people together around the topic. So, you know, as we've seen, obviously when this started, we had a lot of interest. Things like this kind of come in waves at times based on, you know, people's availability, what's happening in the community, what is piquing their interest of things that have happened at the time. But I think what's important, and I think the mayor alluded to this, was that we provide that consistent drumbeat for the community and always have that, we are always here when you're ready to be part of the conversation. So that is our intention with this. I told the organizational structure committee when we met a couple of weeks ago that by no means does the McKenna Foundation intend to necessarily be the leader of this group. What we would like to do is facilitate and empower other leaders to be up in front, because we are a leader in the community in our own right, and we'll continue to do that. But we love to grow the influence and advocacy around different things in the community that need to be addressed. So that is the plan here. We're excited about it. Dr. Lewis and I have conversed some over the email, and he is ready to, you know, continue to be part of this group as needed, and he's certainly carried us so far up to this point. So we do appreciate that, and thank you for coming today. So with that, I did feel like we wanted to, on the agenda, place kind of the finality of the data. That was a big success of the group, I think, up until this point. Gave us a lot of information and insight that we hope to grow from in the future. So I did distribute to the group through Katie the final survey results as Dr. Lewis prepared them, and I wanted to give him just a little bit of time to maybe highlight some of that. Obviously, it's too much to go over completely, but I think just to kind of put a period at the end of that sentence, not that we're done, we're going to start a new sentence, but by way, I know we've had some people interested in presentations on this data, other community groups, and we can kind of talk about, you know, how we want to do that and who's going to do that. But I do think that the forum, which was around establishment of the survey tool, the collection, and who has been monitoring it over time, it's important for us to kind of have our bearings and anchor points with that before we proceed on with the community. So Dr. Lewis, if you're ready, you want to just say a couple of remarks. I think everybody has that printed copy from that you prepared, but we'll just let you finish that out.
I'll just take questions on it, other than saying that I think as we started this and as this group developed the survey was put together to get some initial kinds of thoughts and directions for this group and where this group needs to go forward. And that was the point of it. And so we asked very basic questions which would not require people who responded to give too much time in doing so. And I think that's one of the reasons you saw over 2,000 responses. And I think that's really important. I think the biggest highlights from this was that, one, roughly half of the people that answered this said that they believed that this community was open and welcoming. But another 40% said not the case. And so I don't want to say that's a split, but still half said it was opening and welcoming. That's good. The other thing I think was interesting on the survey was that when we asked a series of questions about whether or not certain things posed barriers, really there were three things that popped up that posed barriers with respect to, people's backgrounds or whatever. And one was affordable housing, which I think is really, really important issue. And secondly, access to health care. Those two really popped up, and community service. And in the report that we have here that I think is ready to go public, if y'all want to go public with it, I think it's fine. A community service had to do with people volunteering to be on various boards in the city. And I think it really highlights the fact that, it's one thing to talk about getting involved. It's another to get involved. And so I think it's really important here. Those are the three. The others, you had a quarter to maybe 30% said that there were those others were barriers, but nothing like those three. Those three stuck out. The other thing, and I'll belabor you on this one just for a minute. It's really kind of interesting. From the open-ended questions, and this is important for y'all to know, what we did with the open-ended questions is we went through and we randomly selected those open-ended questions to put the last two tables together. Because there's no way you're going to go through 2,000 comments. Now, all of them didn't have, but it's a lot of comments to try to go through and to categorize based upon what people said, okay? But when you look at table one, it's really, really interesting because we ask, what are the most important diversity issues facing New Braunfels? 21%, if you round up, said lack of acceptance of people based on their backgrounds. Another 16% said a lack of affordable housing, so it gets highlighted again. And then 28%, if you put them together, has to do with no diversity problems in the community. Actually, people say, we don't have any diversity problems. But then if you couple that with political divisions, which is about 13%, it's a really, really interesting. And that political division thing, even though it's 13% of what we have with responses, really kind of highlights not only what's going on in the community, but what's going on across the United States. So that's really interesting. The last table, though, is this. The last table talks about what can we do to foster better relationships. And the very first response is, hey, we don't need to do anything. And that's almost a quarter. That's 22%. That's pretty high. Now, again, this is not a random sample of people living in New Braunfels. Remember, this was an automatic sort where people decided to participate. So we got to be very careful to say we can look at this and we can generalize to the overall New Braunfels population. We don't know that. What it does is gives us really good information. But be it as it may, after you get by, say, 22%, 19% says we need more inclusive events for the community. I mean, that's an educational piece. And that's some things that y'all are looking at in the particular structural issues here. Another 10% minimize or eliminate political divisions. And then another 8% improve education about diversity in different groups. Well, that really goes along with inclusion when you think about it. So those are some, I think there's some really interesting guideposts for the idea forum moving forward with some of the things that are in Table 3. Now, as Alice alluded to, I have agreed to continue to do whatever I can as it relates to the idea forum. Being an advisor or whatever capacity y'all kind of need me in to help, because I've been here from the beginning with Rusty asking me to be part of this, and so I feel very, very close to continuing to do what y'all would like for me to do. The other thing is this data belongs to the forum. McKenna collected the data. So we've got it both in SPSS format, which is a social science package for doing statistical analysis, but we also have it in Excel format as well. So my point is, I mean, we did the report here, but there may be things that y'all want to look at more closely, especially through the Excel file, as you begin to formalize how you want to move forward in the various committees that you're going to have in the structure. And I think that's going to be important. The other thing is, if there's anything that you think that's here that we need to take a closer look in with, then we would like to do that. And I'll point out one thing and then I'll be quiet. I found it very interesting that when we looked at who specifically thought that we're not doing a real good job of accepting higher percentages for Hispanics and for those who identified as white, lower percentages of saying that we're accepting for those that didn't identify with race. And all you had to do was go through and start looking at some of the responses, and you knew who most of that group was, even though you couldn't identify, all right? Because they were opposed to a lot of things that were there, a lot of them. And then the second group were African Americans. And African Americans, even when you started looking at barriers, answered more like less barriers along with those that didn't identify as race in comparison to Hispanics and whites who identified as whites that were more likely to see barriers. And you start thinking about that, and I said, now, why would that be the case? And this is not in the report, but let me tell you why I think that's the case. I think African Americans, smallest percentage of those by race or ethnicity in your city, are also individuals that probably do not necessarily have a long history of living here. One, in other words, they've moved here like others. But secondly, if we were to ask questions of income and some other things with socioeconomic status, I would argue that probably the African American community here in general is probably higher socioeconomic status. So you get different kinds of answers. And it's really interesting. Now, one of the things I'd like to do, but this is a discussion for another time, and that is that group, well, let me back up. As a sociologist, we've always been curious about, like, for instance, since we're here, the religious nuns. Not N-U-N, but N-O-N-E. Those folks that check religion, none, religion, none. And you start doing the analysis of the religious nones, and you find out they're pretty spiritual. Whoa. Now, why am I saying that? Those folks that said, I'm not going to identify as race. I think it's really a thing we ought to do down the line. Why don't we really focus on that group that wouldn't give a racial answer and see what kind of answers they have across all those questions, and maybe even do some more sophisticated kind of analysis to see what that means, because I think there's something there. Because it is actually that group that you're going to have very serious discussions and inclusions with, because they need to be part of the process, whether they feel like they should or not at this point. And they're not monolithic. In other words, there's probably a lot of variation among that group of non-racials in this particular survey. But that's something we might want to look at later on. Anybody have any questions about the survey at all? Any questions? If you have any later, you can always just hit me through the email. Alice has my emails. Most of y'all, I think, have my email. If there are other questions, just let me know, okay? And I'm glad to be here today. Fought through traffic to get here, but I got here. Thank you.
Do we have access to be able to know if anybody on the live streaming has got questions?
Oh, and do you know how many people are on the live stream?
What happens is the people watch live, and then there are people who watch the live stream afterwards who go, and it's usually a greater number watching afterwards.
I'm just curious about questions. Anyone have a hand raised?
Yeah, I don't think we could do that, right? Great. Okay, well, as a effort to make some progress today, because I feel like this group was definitely oriented around transitioning from talking to doing to action. I think we need to probably give some thought to what that looks like. And at McKenna, and I didn't introduce my two ladies who are here, Katie and Morgan, to all of you, but they know that we like to do more of what works and what ways people want to engage, and less of what doesn't. So I do think in anything organic like this, we have to always be thinking about how we're getting better and what do we need to do to improve. And so when we were transitioning from Christie and the city, I don't want to say from the mayor because he's here, so, but when we were transitioning away from that, the will of the group was to organize into some subcommittees to address the four different components of what the IDEA Forum stood for. So we have done that through the Organizational Structure Committee, and many of y'all are here. Certainly can, proceed on in that way, hoping that people would want to, populate the committees as they were interested and available. And so we can continue on with that. Also, I think intended was just come back to meeting in person on the third Thursday of every other month at 10 a.m., which, here we are, which would put our next in-person meeting in February. So I don't know that we necessarily need to break out into committees today, but one of the things, and Linda was really good about keeping this top of mind when we met a couple of weeks ago, this is about you and what you want, and kind of the will of the group and the will of the people, and that's very important that we maintain that reality. So I would like, we were going to have different people break out with the four committees. Y'all are all here. I'd like to hear from you. I don't know that we necessarily have to stand up in front of everybody. Could I just pass the mic? Or would you rather from the camera? perspective. That's true. Okay, you're right. You're right. I would like to, hear from people who feel like they have some thoughts about either the committee structure, a committee specifically, how we want to proceed, be it in person every other month. Do we feel like we want to put some Zoom calls, pepper those in there as well? Do we feel like we may get a little bit more engagement if people are at work or at home, or maybe they don't want to get out, or whatever the case may be? It's totally up to you, and we are here to facilitate and administer kind of as is the will of the group. So I'm going to kind of, instead of breaking out into small groups, we're going to break out into our group right now, and I would like to kind of leave it open for your comments and your thoughts. I think the survey we'll kind of come back to, but I don't know, I'd like to kind of make sure that we're all on the same page about how we want to move forward and in what format. Because I always like to end a meeting with what's next. What can we expect next? So does anybody have any thoughts? I'm sure Maria looks very contemplative here about that. So we can really kind of open up the forum to you. Your thoughts about the committee structure, a committee in specifically, how we want to shape that moving forward. That was kind of the intent, what we were going to do in a small group, but we'll just do that with our group right now. And I, y'all who know me know I can keep talking if you don't. So Maria, I think Gary wants us to come up here and use the mic if you want to. Okay, yeah.
The people who signed up. The people who signed up for the different committees. Do we have those names or those?
So we do have some. We did not have just an overwhelming number of people go ahead and select that, but we do have that. I want to say we maybe only had 6 or 8 people do that. Actually pick one. So. Oh, yeah, no, we do. Well, and, what we are prepared to do is with the committee leader, go ahead and, establish a subcommittee time, and maybe we need to do that over Zoom and publicize that to the entire group. And so if it is the awareness committee and Tiffany's group, and, you decide that you want to do this at a certain date or time, date and time, we will put that out there. Because if we don't put it out there for people to step in, that's our fault. So what we can decide today, and we don't necessarily have to do this, on camera, but we can get with the lead of each committee as it stands today and establish a time, a publishable time for this, each committee to get together. We would like for the leader of each committee to be the liaison to the steering committee. And I think that's going to be an important group because one of the things I think the mayor and I have kind of talked about is having the idea forum influence on some real-time things that are happening in the community. I can't help but notice that the affordable housing issue is by far the largest issue that people recognize as, there being some disparities in the community. And there's a number of things going on about that. We do have convenings around housing and talking about that. I don't know, I'm just going to be honest because we're here and I feel like I'm in a safe space to do that. We are, and I say we, McKenna is part of this alongside some other nonprofits, but we are making an attempt to establish a permanent resource for people who are homeless and experiencing housing instability in this community as we speak. It's something that we started on February 1st of this year, and we continue today. We are looking for that to be a permanent resource. That's not been the case before February 1st, 2021. And I'm not going to lie, y'all, we've gotten some real negative reactions to that. we've gotten some venom from people that I'm not okay with. I don't want to say I'm numb to it, but I kind of don't care because we're just going to press on regardless. Because at McKenna, we feel like everyone is worthy of our care and our love, so we're gonna treat it as such. But this is a community movement to care about people who are experiencing homelessness that this community has never experienced before. And so it's a place for engagement. I mean, this is very much happening on social media. We're about ready to ramp up and kind of get some community awareness and education going around it. And this is a huge inclusion point because this is a population of people who are struggling with mental health issues, with addiction issues, unemployment struggles, financial issues that have led to their lack of a home, right? And there's a lot of people in our community who want to say, you know what, we don't care. Why would we collect the resources and give all the effort around helping these residents? Because we do know that the people that have been served since February 1st, 200 of them actually, the average time that they've lived in New Braunfels is just over 12 years. So there is an effort right now going on to exclude these people from our community and telling them that they don't count. So we're going to need at some point to get around these ideas and advocate. And how neat for the Idea Forum to be a collection of individuals who has really no interest other than making sure that resources for all continue to be developed and perpetuated. So that's a little, maybe it's because I'm in church and getting a little preachy here, but, I think it's in Matthew, it says, how you treat the least is how you treat me, right? I'm not saying that correctly, but I think we need to figure that out. So with that, what do y'all think? What do you want to do? Yes. You got to get up here. I know. You're comfortable up in front of a crowd. I know that.
You might have to sit me down occasionally. But truly, I'm very grateful to have the privilege and opportunity to serve on such a committee and with individuals that I think who have a heart to see change, to see improvement, to see better families, and to see our community just excel across the board in all areas that we are concerned about. And Alice, I'm very thankful that you guys are participating and have become a very vital part of the Idea Forum, because it's important that we have individuals not only who have ideas and who may have vision, but it is important to have people who have already been working and who's able to bring that experience that we all need in order to address certain issues and concerns that we have. I certainly think that we may not have participants like we would like today to really break out in groups, but as you said, let's continue to reach out to get people to sign up. And if nothing else, we can always somehow put those individuals in contact with myself or the four that has volunteered for the start of these committees to begin to try to meet. And if nothing else, try to arrange a Zoom meeting, an initial Zoom meeting where you can introduce, get acquainted with those individuals that have signed up. And if it's only 1, 2, or 3 of them, perhaps, that may have signed up for the inclusion committee, just give me their names. I'll call them. I'll just give them a phone call and say, listen, you signed up. I'm such and such, and we're going to meet, and stay tuned for a time. Us 3 going to meet, and we're going to talk, and we're going to go forward in some of the things that we would like to get some clarity on. So I'm excited. I'm really excited, really excited. I do want to interject something as well, and that is I think our mayor is doing a fantastic job. He's He has really been, I think, not just present, but I believe his heart is really in what we're doing. And to see something like this come to fruition under your leadership, I have watched you and have seen how, you have been really, really easy to talk with. And at the same time, you have really shown, I believe, a genuine passion to see things improve. And so I would love to see him not just being here as he is, but just to acknowledge the fact he has provided, I think, great leadership. And I was asking the mayor, if he could consider at least thinking of the possibility of just continue to share over just the direction of this organization. The steering committee is something we're going to be working on, but I would love to see the mayor just continue to, if possible, if his schedules permit, to just continue to share, at least in that steering committee portion of our efforts as we move forward. And he seems open to it. And I told him I think the group would certainly welcome welcome his presence to continue to work with us. How y'all feel about that? In that steering committee, the mayor just sharing, being the chairperson for that steering committee, and continue to just be that presence, that voice. He's well connected, he's got passion, and I think that his presence as well just, I believe, it gives a sense of the value and the importance of how we must be very adamant to ensure that we stay noticeable in what we're doing, what we want to accomplish, and what we would love to fulfill. Well, I guess we can do that by common consent then. Common consent. So is that all right with everyone, with the structure committee? All right. Then, so thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that acceptance. And again, I believe we all felt the same way. So we just wanted to at least acknowledge it. Well, I just want to, and I'm getting ready to let someone else come up here in just a moment. I think it's very important, and the inclusion aspect that you were sharing, what you were talking about. There are so many other areas, of course, that we could give focus to, but that inclusion area is very important. It's like to say, it's almost like the elephant in the room. It really is, and we have to be creative and do what we can, strategize, and put some methods together to be able to accomplish what we want to do. One of the things I would like to see happen in that inclusion committee is we may have to, and Dr. Lewis, you may can comment on this, but I know that as a separate part, or it's a separate piece when it comes to inclusion, we may have to go to these various parts of our city and almost do a whole nother type of survey in some of these areas when it comes to inclusion, because we really have to be on point on what that need is and try to see if we could identify at least what our priority is going to be when we begin to address it. If I was to continue to be the liaison for the inclusion committee, it's going to be a lot of field work. We're going to have to talk with people, we're going to shake some hands, we're going to have to try to see, like when it comes to the business aspect, business ventures, and try to see the percentage of business owners. What group of people is that? What are the opportunities? What are there any doors? Are there anyone applying for those positions? And if they're not, we have to be able to get to these individuals. You can be a part, and we have to be able to build some type of pathway to get them to the place to apply, so we can start filling those gaps where there is not representation from a certain group of people, And sometimes people need you to just take their hand. They want to, but they're afraid to, or just don't know how to, and say, come on, we're going to work this out for you. Just come with us. This is what you need to do, A, B, C, and D, and have it all set up. Let the individuals know who are part of the process of whether it's interviews or anything like that, and have a relationship with that office or that business or that factory. How many people, how many of these group of people you got working in this factory? But you got to have a committee that's willing to do those type of things, and then try to see if we can build a pathway to getting others a part of that, and are they willing to be a part? And then you might have some who's just not interested. But anyhow, those are the type of things I'm thinking about, and I know that it involves a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of field duty. It's got to take people with passion. I mean, you really have to have genuine passion, because if you don't, things cannot be done correctly. But I'm hoping that individuals will sign up where we can really do some grassroots things and see some things just at least open up to where we can accomplish what we desire to accomplish as the ideal forum. So that's what I wanted to say about the inclusion part. The other committee areas, I got things to say about that, but I don't want to take up too much time. So anyhow, thank you all again for just the opportunity for us being able to come together and allowing me to be a part of working with you all. And Dr. Lewis, I'm telling you, you have been par excellent in all that you have done with the facilitating us at the very start with keeping us on point, keeping us moving forward. And we appreciate that. And I'm so glad you're staying with us to do what you can, And so, and I think also when it comes to the data that we have received, and as you notice when he is actually expounding on it, he just seems to have a real greater, his insight about it, it's really key for us. I don't think nobody can explain it as well as you can because of just how equally involved you was with the data itself. We can learn to, but I'm just so glad that you're at least here now so that you can be a part of that process when it comes to the introduction of some of these groups, when it comes to making this public. I'm talking about survey data and even a deeper analysis that we're planning on doing. And we hope you can be available at some point when we do want to do those type of presentations and we just need your presence. I'm talking about whether that committee, inclusion or equity committee, might need your presence to come and be a part of that session. And that would be great. That would be great. And so I'm glad about it.
I mean, one of the things we talked about was, and we'd already had some inquiries from a couple of groupings wanting presentations. And I told her I would be more than happy to come and present today. So that's
great.
That's right.
Great. I'm glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Okay, well, let me take a step back here. Anyone else want to? Here you go. You have to come up here. According to our media person, he wants us to be up here.
Just some thoughts while Bishop Franklin was speaking, that I'm a very concrete person. So I loved that, how he's talking about that accompaniment when we're reaching out to people and bringing them in. And then he also made me think about how important it is to have outreach. So we have a nice foundation here, but to be very systematic in our outreach. And my thoughts were, when he was talking, love, how ideas, just get us thinking that each committee really think about who they want to outreach to. And like, maybe I have a certain area that I want to go to, and just promote the idea forum and to try to find those unknown leaders. Like, my thought was, I know this one neighborhood where just this apartment complex, that there's this one mother that shows leadership. No one has ever asked her to kind of take a role that way. She's done that very naturally, organically. So I want to go and talk to her and reach out to her. But then I also want to be able to I want to have the words to get them just as excited as everybody here is excited about the Idea Forum. So it's almost like I'd love to have, like the survey you said, like how am I gonna get them excited about this? How am I going to encourage them? Obviously, I want to be able to accompany them, to help bring out their potential and their capacity. But it would be nice to say, okay, this is, our goals, and just kind of being able to spell that out. And then again, we've got 4 committees so that we're not overlapping, like really being systematic. It's like, well, maybe the awareness committee is going towards the school district and going to talk to principals and having youth involved in this. So my focus is on children and youth education. And we've done some workshops on unity and oneness and along those lines. So so I could see the awareness committee, okay, we're gonna hit the high schools, the middle schools, a different committee for hitting the nursing homes, the older, there's, I think that's one of the, was just listening to a program of where an underappreciated group of people is the seniors within our community. And that wasn't even talked about, I don't think, that much here, but they're a group that's very much underrepresented. So maybe us being very systematic in next steps and doing outreach, because I would just love to be able to bring up new leaders. We already kind of know like who's already there, but how can we promote that? And Bishop Franklin was like so good about, we just accompany them and then we'll be able to show their potentials and bring them in, and just have that enrichment of our community by all this diversity that's out there. That's it.
Well, I love this, and I certainly appreciate getting the opportunity to work with you. I'm very passionate about this forum. What I see, zooming back in the big picture, this community, we know, is facing huge change. Right now, we are in the midst of big change. So what a perfect time to connect and to reach out with others, because there's a lot of new people. And there's nothing more engaging when you're new to get engaged. I also look, by taking that zoom out, how important it is for us to welcome all questions, ours and others. And then being a very conscious listener in hearing, because that's the only way we can find out someone's need or desire, is by listening. This basic stuff that we all know, but it's what I want to highlight in how we come together. Action step, we need to populate these committees. And it's going to be our outreach. It's going to be seeing what would fill out that committee. And it could be that people prefer having this kind of meeting on Zoom. We had a lot of involvement on Zoom. That might be the way we meet. Or each committee decide for himself, no, I want to be in person. Some history, I've called all of my congregation, and after COVID, 1/3 of the population loves sitting on their sofa, watching the service on live stream, and they're completely fed. They don't need to come to church. They don't need to be in person. And they're engaged, and they're part of the community, and they take classes and spirit groups on Zoom. I'm a people person. I want to be with the people. So it might be a hybrid. And maybe our next meeting propose that we do it on Zoom to get that participation, find out where people are, and see how they can tap into the committees we've started. I love the fact that we have the steering team that's populated by the leaders of the groups. Because I love our model of circles within circles, but in my mind, I see us as threads in a tapestry. And there's no real separation between awareness and equity and diversity and inclusion. They overlap completely. And yet, as a committee, we can see where are we going to begin our focus, who are we going to touch, where are we going to land. But there's, Sophenberg Museum, fabulous presentation. And there's no inclusion of the Hispanic population that was here the same time the Germans settled. It's just not there. There's education, there's awareness, there's so many layers of whether it's governmental or civic, our religious communities, our churches, our schools, and then there's just the people that live here, play here, and want to be here. I love it here. And I see this idea forum as a wonderful component of bringing the kind of New Braunfels I want to live in. And so I'm ready, I'm willing, and I love the position that we have, having the mayor and Bishop. You're a great, passionate leader that says the call, come join us. And Louis, you've done a great job with this survey, and you ignite great ideas from this material. We're just starting, and I know we've already begun, but the starting is our organization, how we're going to touch lives and invite people into being part of this. So, thank you much.
Oh, okay, I'll say something. Okay. Yeah, but following all those great speakers, wow. I would like to say just a little bit about what's up there, inclusivity and diversity, equity. When we do what we're supposed to be doing, hopefully get to that point of including more people, and being more inclusive in this city. And when we diversify our organizations, our government, our schools, then maybe we can start working towards achieving some equity. We need to first, I think, focus on those first two, inclusion and diversity, and then see how that fits into achieving equity in this city in some of those places that I just mentioned. And so I'm very excited about being here. I'm going to stick around. I'm not going to go anywhere. And one of the groups that I sort of represent, but I represent people. I don't represent any particular group, but I do represent women, and I do represent Hispanics, for sure. Okay? And so, I will be looking at that, and I'm very interested in what Dr. Lewis, what you said. That is a question that I have in my mind. There is a disconnect there between why there are so many people that say, half of them say, there's no problem here in New Braunfels. And then there's like all of this 40-something% that say, yeah, there is a problem here in New Braunfels. And the people who responded, the respondents to this survey, were not sure, they were the more educated group, correct? And so this is from them. This is the results from them. Now, imagine if you had included, or it had been more in-depth type of survey where you would have had the regular Juan y Maria, the person, the uneducated person, the working class people, the homeless. If you had responses from them, what would they say? So that is a question I said, that's a clue there to me. Anyway, I don't know if it makes any sense to anybody else. But Anyway, that's, I'm here. The reason I asked about the other people, I feel the same way. I forgot, it was you, I think it was, who said, if there's 2 or 3 people who said they were interested in equity, I'd like to know who those people are. And I'd like to also say, like I said last time, where are all those people that showed up in the first meeting and all those people that showed up at City Hall that day and all the people that have been involved or saying something along the way? When we had other meetings where we were in person last year, for example. We need to go back to them and say, hey, listen, time to come back. Can you come back now and join one of the committees? Okay? That's basically it. Thank you, Dr. Lewis. Thank you, Bishop Franklin. Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Jewel. I don't know. I'll get her name right one of these days. Okay, there we go. I like Jewel.
Anybody else? I'm looking around. No, we're good. Okay, so as everybody's talking, I'm thinking about a path forward. So I agree with you, Gary, about, clearly people felt comfortable on Zoom. We had some good attendance there. So here, I propose this to the group as a path forward. Before we leave today, each of the 4 facilitators of each of the committees gets with Morgan and Katie and determines a date and a time for the Zoom convening of each of the committees, a time that works for you. We will then follow up with everybody who is on our list, which is dozens and dozens of people. We will follow up with the entirety of that with each of the committee times. So, obviously we have some people who, yes, I'm interested in this, but we'll let everybody know during the month of January when each of the committees is going to convene via Zoom. Okay? And so each of the liaisons that we have kind of identified with that, we will set up the Zoom as McKenna will do the link and everything, and one of us will be on the on the Zoom with you, but you will be the leader of that convening. And whoever shows up, y'all will lead the conversation. Okay? To kind of give a little bit of a background of what's been happening and, kind of maybe to Linda's point, like, what do we want to do? Who do we need to reach out to? Is there a specific population? Is there a specific group? Is it the school? Is it, whatever the case may be, I love that, leaders of just, small communities, so neighborhoods. So before we leave today, we'll establish those dates and times for the Zoom meetings of each of those, and then you'll be responsible for leading the conversation during that time. I'd like the steering committee then to get together in early February after we've had each of those and give a little report on it. Let's talk about what was discussed, who showed up, what do we need to do, and then what do we need to be doing as a steering committee group. Okay, so I'm thinking we would do that in person at McKenna one day, and we can kind of do a doodle poll to figure out what is going to work. And if you're in the room today, I feel like you're on the steering committee, I'm just saying, so at least for now. We'll have to, default to the chair on his preferences, but I feel like he would be in agreement with that. Yes, okay, good. So we're going to meet as committees via Zoom in January. We're going to reconvene as the steering committee in early February because the next all-group gathering is, I think I put it on the bottom of the agenda, the third Thursday in February at 10. I didn't say a place. We could meet here. We could decide we were going to meet over Zoom. I feel like that's something that the steering committee can decide when we all get together in early February. What's worked, what's not, what do we think, what feedback are we getting, what feels right to the group at the time. How's that? That's just throwing it out there as a plan. Everybody okay with that in general, in theory? Yes? Good? Okay, well, y'all, like somebody said, let's try it. Let's do it. Let's make sure we establish a very clear platform for how this group is going to move forward and places for people to engage and jump in. And if we have to get aggressive with people and say, hey, I need you to come to the equity committee meeting. It's going to be this day and this time. I mean, that's our responsibility to do that as individuals. Sound good? Yes. Okay, so I will break, but let's get with Katie and Morgan, each of you, and decide what was going to work for you, and then we will continue to push the information out there. Katie and I talked earlier about potentially creating an email address specifically for the Idea Forum, so it's not necessarily attached to one name, her name, but maybe it's coming from that, so that'll pique people's attention. To catch their attention. So we just thought of that this morning, but I think we'll do that. Thanks for being here. Do you want to have some wrap-up comments? Great.
Ask a couple of questions. One, since we are live streaming, is there a way to get to advertise on that live streaming a contact point to be able for anyone that might watch that's not been involved to have a contact place? Would it be a phone number for McKenna? Would it be a website? Would we put the city's website as well as whatever you guys have started putting on McKenna's website that they could go to?
Yeah, we haven't published anything on that yet, but probably getting in touch with Katie is going to be the best.
Okay.
And I would almost say over the phone. Yeah. We can get with Owen, you said, to publicize that phone number. Yeah.
Well, that would be possible to put on the live streaming, is that right, Owen? Okay, good, because I think that's going to be really important. We've got this contact group that's been with us all along that we can make contacts with through emails, but if we've got a way to post it on this live streaming, that way new people can get involved. The second thing is I love your idea about the education piece. The young lady that's teaching over at Canyon High School that is also the sponsor of the Black Student Union Group, I think that's the right title. Great young lady, has been energetic, but you know where she is today at 10 o'clock. Kind of like Asia Edwards wants to continue to stay involved, but her work days Thursdays at this time are difficult. Well, this is Wednesday, right? No, this is Thursday. Anyway, we want to continue to make sure that when you look at those individual committee meetings, look at those times and see if you can't, adapt them to their schedules. Yes, sir.
About to say, if you didn't know that, Shalonda Davis now, I think she's the vice principal of Canyon High School.
That's right. I did know that, and I forgot. So it's even she's got even an administrative position now. So maybe with her responsibility as the sponsor of that group, plus being able to have access to the entire student body, it might be. But I know that I don't have a contact at New Braunfels High School, and I know we don't want to just put our arms around this and say nobody else can come in unless you live in the city limits of New Braunfels. That's not what I'm saying, but I think we need to, and the new superintendent is extremely involved with his campuses and everything throughout the city, so I think that's a good positive. I think I'll speak with him first and then see if he can get, Maria, you talked from early on about the LULAC organization, and I think that's an organization that there's many people involved in that. There's many tentacles that could be going out into the community that are reaching some of those folks that you were talking about, that Gary talked about, that Bishop Franklin talked about, and I'm sure Tiffany's got people on her list and so that might be something, we don't want to forget about those larger organizations, just like Bishop Franklin with Martin Luther King Jr. Association. So I think those are really good ways for us to continue to spread the word. And it might be that these people that aren't here today, but when you start contacting them on our original email list, they can get into spreading the word within those organizations. I know the young lady at Habitat, she's been extremely helpful from the very beginning. And I know that their schedules are really difficult, but I think that's an important connect that I'm sure you still have because of the housing issue that we're dealing with. New Braunfels Housing Partners has got a great group of people that has been organized for a couple of years now, I guess, or maybe not quite a couple of years, but is a recognized group by the City Council and by the City of New Braunfels to be working with McKenna and others on the housing issues. So there's a great group of folks that could be involved from there. And then I've got to say that, you know, I think there's 6 other folks that are sitting at the dais with me that all have an interest in each one of their districts that would be extremely important for me to contact, if it's okay with you, to be able to speak with them individually. It's hard to do because any communication I have with them about anything that might eventually become city business, I can't have the meeting unless we post it and unless we do all the things that the Open Meetings Act requires us to do. So I'll have to cogitate on that to see exactly how I'm going to approach that. But there may be ways to get around that by having Alice talk to one and I can talk to others, because this is extremely important. And I think one of our first reports, Dr. Lewis, I'll let you tell me yay or nay if this is a stupid idea, but I think one of our first reports that maybe we want to do with this group coming out of the beginning of the year would be to make just to do a presentation to the city council at a city council meeting. I think there's lots of ideas that have been put on the table for us. There's been so much work done, but there's also questions in the community still about, well, what are you trying to do? Stir up the things that we don't want to hear about, or stir up things that we don't want to be involved with. Too bad. We're going to do that. I mean, and it's not the stirring up, it's making people aware. It's making people, just like Alice said about the issues with our homeless situation. You know, we can't turn our backs on it and walk the other direction. There's plenty of people that are already doing that. We've got to face it head on, and if we're not doing something that we ought to be doing, then we need to step up and say we're going to start doing it. But if that's the proper way to go, then maybe we look at something in February after this first meeting, so that after the 17th meeting, so that we've got 4 committees that have met with whomever comes to that meeting. Then we've got the steering committee that gets back together. Then we could do something maybe at the last council meeting in February to give a direct look. But there's been so many people involved that have come and gone, gotten frustrated and left because they didn't think we were doing anything. We're mad because COVID was here, and so they're mad at us because of COVID, and they couldn't meet in person. You know, we all have reasons, and I'm just as guilty as the next. And then, of course, we couldn't find a worse time trying to meet right here at Christmas. You know, there's a lot of other things going on that people are doing, so I can understand that. But the communication piece was hoping that we'd put up on the live streaming, and then begin looking at a city council report and getting that out in front of the community so that people can see that this has not been just a flash in the pan. It is a hardworking group of people at the table. So that's all I wanted to say. So Alice, I don't have anything else unless anybody else does. Again, I'm extremely honored to be part of this group. I appreciate you asking me to continue to be part of it. I was going to do that anyway from somewhere, whether it be on a Zoom meeting while y'all are meeting somewhere or something. But I'm not going to quit. I'm going to be part of it. Yes, ma'am. Come on up. Sure.
I'm Kim with ServSpot. As I think through all that we're working on and trying to do, I think the word that keeps coming back to my mind is that we're trying to actually build relationships. Alice has heard me say this before, but change moves at the speed of relationships. And so the more that we are building relationships in our community, the more people will pay attention and they will go, oh, you matter. Your ideas matter. And so I think as we start these committees and groups that we have that in mind, that we're not trying to get up and preach to people. We're trying to build relationships so that they care. So that was all I wanted to say.
Good point. And I'm going to say one more thing. When one of the things that has come out of this already, two things that's really a success. Bishop Franklin and Chief Lane have done a great job of going through policies and procedures, discussing those, and you even have an advisory committee that meets, correct, with the police department. tremendous success, needs to be highlighted and talked about. The second thing is that we, in January, because of my lack of leadership and understanding of where I was sitting at the dais, caused some faux pas on appointing a person to a committee or a commission in the city. But out of that was already working behind the scenes. The city staff was working with city secretary, who was brand new, and the two people that had not been brought on at that point were brand new in the city secretary's office, so there was a lot of transition happening. And so at that point, they began working and redefining exactly the way people can get involved through boards and commissions. At that time, they had to rebuild the whole application process. They had to rebuild everything that was on the website. They had to continue to communicate with people about who was going on, who was going off, who needed to reapply if you wanted to, how to get more people involved. And I think over the spring, there was probably maybe not quite 100, maybe even less than that, people that were applying to either re-up on boards and commissions or new people coming on. And when we addressed this in November with the new procedures of brand new application process, it's November and June every year now, so everybody comes and goes November and June. We had almost 270 applications for different boards and commissions. That city secretary staff has made a huge difference in getting the word out to our community. And that was one of the big things, and still was today, I think I heard, getting people involved in the community. And Dr. Lewis, it came out, I believe, in the survey. And so that's a huge success. So if you know anybody at the city secretary's office that you may see occasionally, tell them thanks for the work they did to get us to where we are today, because that is getting over some of this hump of getting people involved. Now, we're not there yet. If we have 500 applications, that's even better. And so I want to give a shout out to the staff. So those folks that are watching, when you watch this live streaming, get involved. Call the city secretary's office, 221-4000, and find out exactly who's up, what boards and commissions are available for looking for people, because they're looking for them all the time. So I'll close it. Thank you very much. Appreciate all of you, and we look forward to getting together in February.